My name's Alex Dorsey, and this is my story. I'm in my mid-30s and worked in the film industry most of my adult life. I'm a relatively average guy with one exception. I've decided to leave the life I know and live my childhood dreams. I'm going to sail around the world. I just packed up my Jeep and left Los Angeles on a beautiful Southern California morning. I'm not a rich guy, and I don't exactly know how I'm going to pull this off, but I do have an idea. I've managed to scrape about $20,000 together. I'm going to document my journey and share it with everyone on the internet. Trust me, I know, my friends think it sounds crazy too, but here goes. Joshua Slocum was the first man to solo circumnavigate the globe on a sailboat. He was born in Nova Scotia, Canada in 1844, and that's where I've decided to start my journey, at the beginning, 3,600 miles away from Los Angeles. I need to find a sailboat. I've had 3 sailboats in the past 12 years, and I consider myself an experienced coastal cruiser. What I don't know is how I'm going to find a solid cruising boat for under $20,000. I'm just going to start looking at boats and hope that something falls into my lap. This is definitely not my boat. She costs over $80,000, but I wanted to take a peek. Her name is Louise, and she's a 44-foot Peterson. Louise is outfitted for cruising with a 6-man life raft mounted on deck, a new Raymarine radar, and an AutoHelm Autopilot ST6000. The speed, depth, and wind instruments have all been updated in the last 2 years. They're all Raymarine products and a choice I would have made myself. Standing at the helm, I realize she's way too much boat for me. Once below, the nav station is starboard and the galley is to port. The dinette, which folds into a double bunk, is port as well. She could definitely use some new upholstery and the brightwork needs attention. There's a head with shower just forward of the dinette, and it's accessible from the main salon as well as the V-berth. Going aft, the engine room is to port and houses a Perkins 154 diesel engine. The master stateroom is aft as well, with a master head and shower. There is direct access to the helm from the master stateroom. There's no doubt that Louise is a beautiful sailboat, but even if I had the money, she's just way too much boat for me to single-hand. After checking into a motel and getting some dinner, I decided to crash early. In the morning, I was the first one up and out the door as usual. The more time I spend in Atlantic Canada, the more I notice that Canadian sailors have a sense of pride in seamanship that I haven't come across before. I spent the next few weeks camping out of my Jeep and looking at boats. I didn't find anything, but I got a lead to go look at a boat in Camden, Maine. So, on my way back to the States, I spot this moose out of the corner of my eye, and I decide to try and get a closer look. I take off onto a small dirt road and get caught in a maze of trails, and all I manage to do is get myself horribly lost. If you knew me, you'd know my stubborn sense of determination usually takes over my common sense, and I forge ahead anyway. Perhaps I'm better off on foot.
I think I took a wrong turn someplace.
Perhaps not. Deeper and deeper into the rabbit hole I go. I never find my moose, but I do get the opportunity to see some beautiful Canadian countryside, despite the fact that I get eaten alive by mosquitoes. I spent over an hour driving in circles trying to find my way to the main highway. I've probably looked at 30 boats by now, and I'm definitely getting more of a sense of what I want. I'd like to find something around 34 feet, with a full keel and a small cockpit. A double-ender would be great. I'd really like something like a Hans Christian 34, but I can't find one under $68,000. The boat that I'm about to look at's name is Integrity. That sounds promising. Integrity was out on a mooring, and I had to shoreboat out to her. As soon as I got on the shoreboat, I spotted a 44-foot Peterson, just like Louise, and got to see what she'd look like in the water. Now, Integrity is a stout little blue water boat. She's a 32-foot Allied Seawind Mark II ketch. Hello, baby, she's a pretty girl. Her previous owners have done a good job outfitting her for cruising. She sports a Raytheon R20 radar and a blipper radar reflector. She also has a 4-winds wind generator mounted on the mizzen. On the bow, I find a 35-pound CQR with 200 feet of 5/16 chain. She's powered by a Westerbake 27-horsepower diesel, which seems to be leaking a little oil. She has a Furuno DGPS and an AutoHelm nav center plotter. The master stateroom is the V-berth, and cosmetically, I'd give her a solid 7. There's a head with shower, which is accessible from the V-berth as well as the main salon. I really liked Integrity, but she's not my boat, not to mention the fact that she's still $12,000 out of my grasp. My quest to find a boat continued for over a month. I checked every little cove and spoke to every broker I could find. I was becoming obsessed to find her. She needs to be out there. The boats I'd find in my price range just didn't cut it. They didn't feel safe. I looked at fin-keeled boats and I looked at full-keel boats. Wooden, fiberglass, steel, and even cement-hulled boats. I would tear every boat apart doing my own surveys, and if they came even close to what I wanted, I'd take them out for a sea trial. I was starting to get really discouraged, although I never gave up hope. I had worked my way back into Canada, and as soon as I got there, I got a call to turn around and drive 16 hours down to Mystic, Connecticut. Yeah, that's where they made the movie Mystic Pizza. And that's where I found her, floating on her mooring in Noank, Connecticut. Namaste. The owner had called me on the cell phone and told me I could take his inflatable to check the boat out for myself. He knew that I just drove down from Canada and let me know I could spend the night aboard if I wanted to. Namaste is a 28-foot west sail. This was love at first sight. It's obvious she needs some work and she's plain Jane. No electronics, refrigeration, or even pressure water for that matter. But at only 28 feet, she's the biggest little sailboat I've ever seen. There it is, a small cockpit with large scuppers, and she's a double-ender. I'd kinda hoped to have a wheel, but my first two boats had tillers, and that's just fine. Her wooden decks feel right as rain under my feet. There's only one problem with Namaste. I'm short $8,000 on the asking price. I hope the owner's a bit flexible. Namaste means I bow to the divine within you, in Hindi. If I can afford her, I'll keep the name. It seems quite appropriate for my trip. She's absolutely perfect. Let's look below. Sorry for the bad camera work, but I was really excited. As soon as I got in the boat, I noticed a musty and moldy smell. The upholstery looks new, however there's a thin layer of mold on everything. She has more than ample storage for a boat her size, and most importantly, she just feels right. There's a small head with no shower. I'll have to add one, and by the smell I can tell there's a holding tank somewhere. Namaste was constructed in Costa Mesa, California in 1976. There's a small quarter berth on the port side behind a small nav station. There's a diesel-fired heater in the closet, but I was told that it doesn't work. I'm sure I can fix it. There's a stainless steel sink, but surprise, the water pumps don't work. I'm sure I can fix those too. More mold. Oof, that doesn't look good. Nothing a little paint can't take care of. If you couldn't tell, I've got that "don't worry, I can fix it" attitude going on. I want this boat. I had a chat with the owner that evening. He accepted my offer of $20,000 and Namaste became mine. The search is over. Now I have the perfect boat, but no money. Thank God for eBay. A few people got to bidding, and I got more than I wanted for my very cool and rare Jeep CJ8 Scrambler. I brought Namaste to the Brewer's Yacht Yard in Mystic, Connecticut for repairs. I spent the days working on small projects and the nights studying charts by lamplight, as most of my 12-volt wiring was in a nearby dumpster. Rebuilding the bowsprit was my first major project. I had become close friends with Ken, the previous owner of Namaste. When I bought her, Ken offered to help me rebuild the bowsprit, and I took him up on it. I spent many weeks in his shop. After cutting and epoxying 4 pieces of teak together, it was time to shape the bowsprit. Now, if I was going to attempt to shape the bowsprit, I'd end up with a toothpick, but luckily, Ken has a close friend who's a local shipwright. Dave is an artist and wood is canvas. The end of the bowsprit needed to be a circle of an exact diameter to fit the bowsprit cap, which supports both of the forward stays. I didn't see how this was possible to do without a lathe and by hand, but the cap ended up sliding on perfectly. Dave knocked this out in just a few hours. After I got the approval from Venus, Ken's dog, I moved on to the finishing work. The winter came quickly, and Mystic would see its harshest winter in 12 years. Ken had suggested that I cut open the fuel tank for cleaning and inspection, and boy am I glad I did. There was a lot of dead algae in the tank that would have clogged many fuel filters. It was time to haul Namaste. I wanted to put in new through-hull fittings, give her a fresh coat of anti-fouling paint, and attend to some of the mast and rigging issues. 4 days after I hauled Namaste, I noticed that the rudder was dripping water. This is very bad news, a huge repair job, and will cost me the season. I took it as a sign and decided to spend the winter in Mystic, refitting Namaste and attending to every little detail. And once again, I found myself at Ken's shop in Noank. I've read a lot of books on solar circumnavigations, and in each one, someone either loses a rudder or comes across someone who has. With no rudder, one has no ability to steer the boat, and I decided I wanted a super rudder. I wanted it bulletproof, literally. I cut open the rudder and hollowed it down to bare fiberglass and reinforced the entire seam with Kevlar. I filled it with an 8-pound closed-cell foam and 6 gallons of epoxy. After I poured the epoxy, I would weigh down the foam to ensure that there were no air pockets on the bottom side. I also reinforced all of the hinge points with Kevlar for added strength. Building a rudder is similar to how one builds a surfboard, but this project went on for 5 weeks, and I was beginning to lose faith that it would eventually come to an end. The trick to the rudder is fairing it to the right shape. It's basically a wing underwater, and if one side differs from the other, Namaste would pull to one side.
When you put the epoxy together, it's got to be a 5-to-1 ratio of resin to hardener. 5 cups of the resin, and add 1 cup of the hardener. We're also going to put in microlite and silica. Anyway, the West System's 406.
The fairing coats of epoxy were applied and it really started to take shape. I brought the rudder back to the brewer's yacht yard for a dry fit. Working on Namaste outside was unbearable, and the guys at the yard surprised me and moved Namaste into the shop where I had access to heat and tools. I put the final touches on the rudder before moving on to the mast. My friends Paul and Wayne came down from Canada to help me rewire the mast. Wayne is an electrician, and I really appreciated the help. We added spreader lights, new navigation lights, and replaced all the wiring. After that was done, I stripped and painted the mast. I had the welding attended to as well. I also built a mount to hold 5 5-gallon fuel tanks on deck. This increases Namaste's range under power by more than 2 days and over 220 miles. My friend Nick came from California to help me work on Namaste and build the ProjectBlueSphere.com website. Ned and all my other friends at the yard would always lend a hand if they had the time. As you can tell, the possibility of losing the rudder really freaks me out. And I decided to have the gudgeons forged out of solid bronze. They're much stronger than their fiberglass predecessors, and it really adds to the strength of the entire rudder system. After the rudder was in place, everything seemed to come together. The new through hulls went in, along with the new speed, depth, and temperature transducer. I was concerned about falling off Namaste's stern, so I had a custom stern pulpit built. The big day came, and Namaste left the shop reborn. She was a bit tired and worn when she entered, and now she looks strong and ready to go. She carries her new bowsprit and rudder with pride. I couldn't shed my smile as the guys gently placed her back into the frozen Mystic. I think she knows what's about to happen. Maybe it's just me.
Careful, Grandpa. Don't get hurt.
Okay, Sonny, I'm not gonna do that.
It got really cold and the brunt of the Mystic winter hit hard. 2 blizzards rolled by back to back and Namaste was getting iced in. Every morning, no matter what the weather, the guys would find time to break up the ice around Namaste. It was too cold to do any work, so Nick and I decided to take our bikes out and see a bit of Mystic. We'd been cooped up in the shop for months and needed to have a little fun. I'd bought a bike to replace my Jeep, and I wanted to see if I could jump a snowbank. Oh, I guess not. We found a hammock on a dock, and Nick decided to try to get a little sun. It was so cold, the lines were completely frozen. Now that's funny. Over the next 8 weeks, we installed new sailing electronics and an autopilot I affectionately named Quint, after the captain in one of my favorite movies, Jaws. I also installed a Raymarine radar and a Questus self-leveling radar mount, along with 2 Garmin GPSs, both of which feed navigational data to the autopilot and the radar display. We also installed 2 new Rolls batteries, a new starting battery, and had the starter rebuilt. We put in new electrical panels, along with all new interior wiring, added pressure water to the galley and the head, and installed a shower as well. Installed 2 new bilge pumps, new plumbing, new fuel lines, replaced all of the running rigging and about 35% of the standing rigging. We also installed new stereo, amplifier, and speakers, replaced all of the navigation and cabin lights, installed a new roller furling, new fire extinguishers, a dynaplate, and a lightning dissipator at the masthead, mounted a winch and rope clutch on the cabin top, rebuilt all of the other wenches, thanks Ned, and believe it or not, the list goes on. But that day came, the big day, the day to leave. Nick decided he wanted to join me for a few weeks and travel down the East Coast a bit. He's going to follow me out in another boat so he can get some video of the big day. The rest of the day was very quiet. I just took it in. You know, fulfilling your dreams has got to be one of the most important tasks in your life. I've dreamed of doing this for as long as I can remember. This trip isn't like taking your boat out for the weekend. It's more like stepping out of your front door and not returning home until the entire universe just makes sense. At least that's the way it is for me. This could take a lifetime.
Day number 1. This is the only day number 1, and I guess every day will be the only day, but day number 1 seems to be a big one. We left the Brewer's Yacht Yard at 10 o'clock, calibrated the autopilot, which Quint is working beautifully. We've had the autopilot working ever since we got into Long Island Sound, and he's been guiding us right along. We have had about 10 knots of wind coming directly on the nose all day. We haven't been able to sail. The mainsail's been up. But I would say half an hour ago, roughly 7 o'clock, the wind shifted a little bit, and I put out the jib. Sun's going down, and it's absolutely magnificent. We'll sail throughout the night and hopefully be in New York City tomorrow.
Thank God for radar. Nick and I traveled all night taking shifts, and I was at the helm the next morning when the sun came up. It was very foggy and the visibility was under half a mile. I think sunrise on a sailboat has got to be the most peaceful place on earth. Once we entered Hell's Gate, the East River grabbed a hold of Namaste, and the GPS confirmed that we were traveling 9.2 knots over ground. I think that'll be the speed record for Namaste on this trip. New York City is my home, and where I spent the first 20 years of my life. I haven't had a break since I started the project, and I decided to take a few weeks to chill out and just check out some museums. I love the Big Apple. I'll always be a New Yorker at heart, no matter where my travels take me. Time to go. We encountered a storm off the New Jersey coast and made a run for the Delaware Bay. At the top of the Delaware Bay, there's a cut that brought us into the northern Chesapeake. The Chesapeake is the largest estuary in the country, and wow, is it beautiful. It's also the home to Annapolis, which many consider the heart and center of American sailing. The Annapolis Harbor Master runs some of the finest public boating facilities I've ever seen. You'll get a mooring can, clean showers, laundry facilities, internet access, and friendly faces, all for about $20 a night. There are shore boats if you're feeling a bit lazy, not to mention an abundance of great bars, restaurants, and yes, of course, shopping. Annapolis is truly a beautiful city that is filled with history. You might not know this, but Annapolis was our nation's capital for a short while. You'll get an education just walking down the streets, talking to people, and taking in the sights and sounds. Do yourself a favor and don't forget to bring a camera. I'm going to take a little detour and travel up the Patuxent River to visit some family. It's about a 32-hour trip and the weather is not looking good.
Here is a short-term forecast for the following counties and areas. York County, Pennsylvania. A strong thunderstorm just south of Chambersburg on the Pennsylvania-Maryland border at 7 p.m. will be near Gettysburg by...
My entire sailing career has revolved around sailing in good weather. Sure, I've got caught in storms and heavy seas, but I'd usually leave in good warm weather. Those days are far in the past. Nick's returning to California in a week, and he wants to get in as much sailing as he can, so we took off. You can see storms coming on the radar at sea, and you can try to dodge them, but that's not the case on a river. Nick and I anchored Namaste and went ashore for some dinner, but taking the inflatable back to Namaste in a storm, that was the fun part.
Well, here we are, Wednesday late night. We got back in a completely soaked dinghy.
West Marine and Zodiac, thank you guys. I know you can't see anything except probably the lightning behind me. We just made it half a mile from shore. The waves were so big, the Zodiac was completely swamped. I mean, the motor was just staying over the waterline and it just chugged the whole way here. It was amazing. The storm that just went through, I mean, I saw 25 or just like that one, 30 lightning strikes here within a mile and a half. I mean, they're all over the place. The closest one probably that power plant less than half a mile away. Probably not a good idea to be on the boat right now, but it is what it is. There's another one. Yeah. This is Stormy. I was surprised that Nick, I told him we're visiting my family. We're in Maryland. Prince Frederick. We're off the charts. There's no charts for up here in these waters. We have to kind of tool our way around. We're still kind of in the channel because it was the only water over 6 feet that we could find. Oh! Yeah.
Is the dinghy empty of the water?
Yeah, I bailed it all out.
Wow.
The wind has subsided. The wind waves just crashing on the dinghy. 1, 2, 3. Within like 10 waves, the dinghy was absolutely full. There's another one. That was, that was probably on their property right there.
Well, turn off the light.
The storm continued throughout the night. Lightning touched down within a few hundred yards of Namaste a number of times. A few days later, Nick flew back to California, and I managed to pick up some work for a few months. That's when I met Isabel.
Virginia and Maryland are preparing for the arrival of Hurricane Isabel. Hurricane conditions are possible over the next 24 hours. Mariners are advised to seek safe haven and make a heavy weather preparation for their vessels. Recreational boaters are advised to seek a safe mooring location.
Hey everybody, it is September 17th, which is a Wednesday. I've been, as you all know, in Prince Frederick, Maryland, trying to wait for the hurricane season to end, but Isabel is knocking on the door outside. She's showing up tomorrow. I guess this had to get done sooner or later, and it looks like it's going to get done sooner. Isabel's coming in tomorrow. I have stripped all the sails off the boat. I've taken all the fuel cans off the deck. I've been going back and forth with which way to anchor the boat, tie it up, and I think I'm going to stay on one on the CQR. The 40-pound CQR has been digging down for probably a month and a half while I've been working, so it's deep and it's set, and I'm not going to pick it up and move it. I'm probably going to run another line out. There's some pylons out here in the water. I'm going to run a safety line to one of those, and I'm going to run, I have a big Danforth. I'm going to run the Danforth back to the cockpit, so if I am moving, I can just toss it over the side. Man, I tell you, not a good feeling. Haven't been able to sleep for a couple days. She's big, she's Isabel, she's coming, and I will, if anything, get some good video for you guys.
All mariners are requested to seek safe harbor immediately, unquote, break.
I've seen my fair share of weather, but I've never been through a hurricane. All I can say is it just felt different. The wind built slowly and steadily, the rain came down horizontally, and the waves were tightly packed together. I did feel comfortable in the fact that my 40-pound plow was not only sized for Namaste, but was also set well, and I had all chain out. Let's just say right now, my anchor will give way during the night. This is cool. That's Isabel.
I really want a cigarette, a warm shower, like a brand or a rum would be very nice. I just want to show you something funny. It's the building that's underwater, the restaurant. It's not funny because it's somebody's business, but
I ended up sacrificing my 3-chip digital video camera trying to get images of Hurricane Isabel. Given the lighting conditions, ferocity of the wind and rain, and movement of the boat, trying to take video was next to impossible. The only way I can convey the magnitude of Hurricane Isabel is to show you the video I took the following day, and yes, that is a boat floating next to a house. I had been fighting to hold ground for many hours, but I couldn't stop Namaste from dragging, and I ended up in a minefield of pylons. A few hours from now, these pylons will be hiding 2 feet underwater and surging 4 feet out of the water. Unfortunately, one of them took Namaste's bowsprit and cracked my head open in the process. They say, red sky at night, sailor's delight. Red sky in the morning, sailor take warning. The saying's always true. As soon as I knew Namaste wasn't dragging, I slept.
So I turn that off. So I just woke up out of a almost 26 hour, 25 and a half hour sleep.
I couldn't get out of bed. I hurt so bad. I am bruised head to toe, cut up. But I realized something when I looked at the shore this morning. And I'll show you in a second. This boat is here for one reason and one reason only. Because I kept her off the beach. I want to show you what the beach looks like. I woke up and felt like I slayed the dragon. I survived and made it through the night relatively unscathed. I felt like a winning prize fighter, invincible, until I got to shore. It was quiet. All I could hear was a young girl crying in the distance. Everything just felt black and white. I knew Namaste fared well given the images surrounding me. It was sad. Homes, businesses, cars, boats, just gone. Benedict, Maryland was evacuated the previous night and declared a disaster area the following morning. I'll miss having fresh oysters and a cold beer at Tony's or a burger and fries at Chapelier's. They just got new siding last week. I hope these people get help soon. Well, you know what they say, time heals all. I had to take some work to pay for repairs, but after a few months I was on the road again. It was very cold, and my rebuilt diesel heater decided to go on the fritz. I tried to bite the bullet and layer up really well, but after sleeping one night in 15 degrees, I decided to pull in somewhere and fix the heater. I found myself at Zannheiser's Yachting Center on Solomon's Island in Maryland. I was there for a few days and managed to fix my heater. After the snow fell, I got a little weather window, and I headed southbound on the Chesapeake for Norfolk, Virginia. Next stop, Intercoastal Waterway, Norfolk, Virginia. Norfolk, Virginia. Yeah, it's early. It's very early, but it is very... I keep looking at the screen. My eyes look much weird. I need to look more into the lens. Beautiful sunrise. Check it out. This was one of the most beautiful sunrises I've ever seen, and I was happy to have a camera in hand. It will take me about 23 hours to make Norfolk. It was very cold, but just the idea of going south was warming me up a bit. There's a lot of traffic in the Chesapeake, and one must rest with one eye open. Nighttime came and I would catch 10-minute cat naps. My eyes often played tricks on me, and I found myself checking my charts and radar often. The Intercoastal Waterway, ICW, or the Ditch as many call it, is a 1,095-mile trip on inland waters down the eastern seaboard between Norfolk, Virginia and Miami, Florida. There it is. Red-lighted buoy number 36 marks mile 0 of the Intercoastal Waterway. When you start your trip down the ditch, the first thing you'll notice is that there are many bridges that need to be opened. In fact, there are 130 bridges, and 85 of them will need to be opened due to Namaste's mast height. At mile 11.5, you'll encounter the Great Bridge Lock, and your boat will be lifted 2.7 feet. Don't worry, there are no gushing tides, and the process is very safe. If you're heading southbound, you should have your biggest fenders, along with your bow and stern line, standing by on your port side. I didn't make it very far on my first day on the ditch. I'd been at the helm for 27 hours, and I really needed to get some sleep. When cruising the ditch, you'll need to be aware at all times. There are many floating hazards, shoals, and strong currents. You'll need to stay in the marked channel, otherwise you'll find yourself aground. If you're planning a trip on the ICW, make sure your towing insurance is up to date. For the majority of my life, I've been a filmmaker, but for a short time I was a stockbroker, and we had a saying that I think is appropriate when it comes to cruising. No risk, no reward. I'd be doing a great disservice to the states of Virginia and North Carolina if I was to try to attempt to describe how beautiful cruising here is. Music is the only way I can convey the experience. Enjoy. Right around mile 203, you'll find Beaufort, North Carolina. If the sailing gods are with you as they were for me, you'll be escorted into Beaufort by the local dolphins. The place to get a slip in Beaufort is the Beaufort Docks, and you can reach them on Channel 16. And the dock office is in the same building as the Dockhouse restaurant. Your slip will be right on the boardwalk, and you can watch the local dolphins play and feed next to your boat. Beaufort is a big sailing town, and cruising sailors jump offshore from Beaufort to reach Bermuda, the Bahamas, and other points in the Caribbean. You'll find great stores and nautical gifts and wear, coffee shops, restaurants, and pubs. The local shrimp is fantastic. I'd recommend having a shrimp basket at the Finn's Grill. It's the best deal around at just under $8. Right across the street, you'll find the North Carolina Maritime Museum. I definitely recommend seeing it, however, that's not why I'm here. They offer a very unique service. They provide free loaner cars to transient sailors. If you have a valid driver's license, you can check out a car for up to 2 hours. If you do check out a car, please make a donation and replace the gas you used. I'm usually up blaring classical music and chugging down the ditch before the sunrise every morning. I can usually cover between 40 and 50 miles each day. There have been a lot of hurdles that I've had to overcome to make this trip a reality. One of the ones I haven't dealt with yet is solitude. Solo sailors always write about battling loneliness on long passages, and I didn't know how I'd react to the situation. I would spend 3 to 4 days alone cruising down the ditch, anchoring at night and not speaking a word for days. Truthfully, I'm really enjoying the time alone. I spent the days playing guitar, reading, listening to music, or studying charts. I'll tell you one thing, I certainly don't miss telephones or television. I always get asked why. Why would you attempt to sail around the world by yourself? A few years ago, I reevaluated what I really want out of my time on this earth, and having a house, cars, and lots of stuff, and being plugged into the system, it just wasn't it. This is it. Right now, I'm doing exactly what I want to be doing. I'm cruising the world and sharing my experience with all of you. If you're thinking of cruising down the ditch, you might want to pick up a bird book. I know, it sounds kind of nerdy and geeky, bird watching and all, but I really wish I had one. Every mile seems to reveal a new species of bird, tree, or flowers. The days just roll by and I'm finding a peace that I've never known before. I've traveled and vacationed a fair amount, but I don't think I've ever really relaxed. I noticed that Namaste's diesel motor has been smoking more than usual, and I'm getting a bit concerned. I'm going to have someone check it out before I leave the country. I've decided to make port in the next town. I pulled into Georgetown, South Carolina with the sunset, dropped the hook, and rode to shore for a burger. The next day, I spent some time walking around, and I really got an idea of what Southern hospitality is all about. It was Sunday, and everything was closed. I saw some people in a bar across the street, walked in, and asked if they were open. The owners informed me that, in fact, they were closed and not able to legally sell me anything on Sunday. However, they invited me in for fresh oysters and a beer. We talked and laughed into the wee hours of the morning, and I made some new friends in Georgetown that night. They suggested that I look for a mechanic in Charleston. The currents in the Carolinas can be swift and the tide's high. If you're thinking of cutting a marker or traveling outside of the channel, make sure you have local knowledge. Otherwise, just don't do it. Off to Charleston. I radioed ahead and reserved a slip at the Ashley Marina. I must admit, it was nice to plug into shore power and run my space heater for the night. At the Ashley Marina, you'll find a small ship store, and they have a shuttle that will drive you into Charleston. Charleston is a beautiful city with lots of history. If you're into shopping, you'll find it all here. The Volvo mechanic couldn't see me for a few days, so I decided to explore the city and take some video. Charleston doesn't seem to have the hustle and bustle for a city its size. You'll hear the clip-clop of horses' hooves on the cobblestone streets, just as you would have 100 years ago. I was a bit uneasy walking the streets of Charleston. A major engine problem could really sink me at this point. In my mind, I was hoping for the best, but preparing for the worst. A friend of mine gave me some good advice before I left. She said there's one thing and one thing alone that will get you through this trip. Attitude. Always have a good one.
Well, I was hoping it wasn't going to come to this, but it's going to. I'm taking the motor apart. Namaste's number one cylinder is 100 pounds shy of pressure. I did a compression test the other day, and don't have much of a choice. The motor has to be rebuilt. It's really expensive, so I downloaded a manual on the internet. I'm going to do as much of it as I can, and that's saying and one of you actually emailed it to me, that which does not kill you makes you stronger, right? So I guess it makes this whole journey a little sweeter for me, supposedly, that I have to work harder for it. So I'm pretty deep in the hurt locker when it comes to working on the motor. This is the liner. And I found what looks like, if you look in the liner, you can't really see it. It looks like there's a crack. Yeah, there's not enough light. Actually, you can see it right here. This sucks. But anyway, at least I'll know my motor. And know my motor I did. I had both injectors rebuilt, replaced both pistons and sleeves, and added new rings, valves, and gaskets. The rebuild took me 4 weeks. Well, the moment's come to turn it on and see if it's going to work. Don't know how I feel about it. I think I've done everything right. I'm gonna go outside and turn it on. I'll leave the camera running. If it blows up, you'll probably hear some obscenities. Alright, here goes. Well, what do you know? Success. I was off again despite a cold front which was approaching from the south. I spent the next 4 days in cold and wet Fowleys. The only other boats out in this mess were commercial fishing boats, but the thought that Florida in warm weather was just around the corner kept me really motivated. Palm trees started to dominate the coastline, and one by one I started shedding layers of clothes. The ICW through Georgia was somewhat desolate, and southern Florida was colder than I had expected. The good news is my motor seems to be breaking in well, and I can notice a significant increase in Namaste's power. After all the stress, hassle, and expense, I'm glad I'm leaving the country with a freshly rebuilt motor. In 2 days, it's gone from winter to summer. 2 days of traveling down the ICW. Florida smells like lighter fluid and charcoal and barbecues. It's so nice to be away from the cold. So very nice. My next port was as far from the solitude of the ICW as I can get. I found myself in Fort Lauderdale for spring break. How's that saying go? When in Rome, lay on the beach all day and drink lots of margaritas? Well, that's exactly what I did. It's time for a break and I need to thaw out. Despite all the beautiful people and partying, I found myself laying on the beach most of the time, dreaming of sailing offshore. Don't get me wrong, I did my fair share of drinking, and it was really nice to take a break from the project for a while, but after a few weeks, I was ready to continue south to Miami. At night, I would return to the serene setting in Lake Sylvia, where Namaste was anchored. And one morning, it was just time to go. I found myself cruising the beautiful deep blue water of the Atlantic. On my way to, either No Name Harbor or Hurricane Hole, I think they call it. Hurricane Hole or No Name Harbor on Key Biscayne. There's a big front coming in, so pretty much the whole week's going to be 25 knots of wind. Crossing the Gulf Stream probably won't be the best thing to do, so I might go down to what's it called? Marathon in the Keys, which is supposed to be a really cool place for cruisers to go. A lot of cruisers. There's a West Marine. I can actually just take the dinghy to the dock and, you know, do some outfitting. Still a couple things that I want to fix. Man, no more cold weather for me, boy. I tell you, I'm done with it. Even though the day seems nice enough, the Weather Channel is reporting 10 to 12 foot seas in the Gulf Stream, and I decided to continue south through the Florida Keys to Marathon and Boot Key Harbor. Beautiful port on day Namaste. I'm in Marathon, and it's a really good thing that I don't have a fear of heights, because I am absolutely at the top of the mast. The view is beautiful from up here. Let me show you what Boot Key Harbor, Marathon, Florida looks like. That's the radar reflector. That's what the top of the masthead looks like. Got the transducer for the wind instruments, VHF antenna, the lightning protection stuff. and the Windex. Namaste looks just like a pumpkin seed from up here. Look at that. Isn't she pretty? Great shape.
I borrowed a neighbor's top climber to go aloft. You kind of feel like an inchworm inching your way up and down the halyards. It's kind of slow going, but most importantly, I always felt safe. The whole reason I went aloft was to change my lower, swedged forestay fittings to mechanical fittings. This is the first time I've installed mechanical fittings, and I was so happy with the end result, I wanted to show everyone how I did it. I cut my wire with a hacksaw and cleaned the rough edges with a file. After that, I inserted the outer piece of the fitting over my wire like this. The next thing I did was to open the wire. When one does this, the outer wire separates from the inner wire. If you don't feel comfortable doing your own rigging, always consult or hire a professional rigger. Once the wire was open, I slid the small cone piece over the center wire. Remember, all mechanical fittings are different. You'll need to refer to your specific product's directions for installation. After it was in the proper position, I closed the outer wire over the cone. It looked like this. After that, I slid the outer part of the fitting over the cone. I took a small screwdriver and spaced all of the outer wires evenly around the cone so they looked like this. A local rigger suggested that I fill the fitting with silicone to keep water out. This step wasn't in the directions, but it made sense to me. When I screwed the fitting together, silicone seeped out of the fitting, and I cleaned it up with a little acetone. When it was all done, this is what it looked like. Pretty simple process. I've been waiting for over 3 weeks in Boot Key Harbor to get a window to cross the Gulf Stream. I was getting frustrated as cold front after cold front rolled by. The Gulf Stream is a treacherous and tricky piece of water to cross and separates the east coast of Florida from the Bahamas. The seas in the Gulf Stream were only between 8 and 12 feet, but they came from every direction, and the waves were tightly packed together. It kind of felt like sailing through a giant blender at night. I wasn't able to shoot any video of the crossing. I left No Name Harbor in Miami around 2100 and arrived off the coast of Bimini around 0900 the following morning. I got very sick during the crossing, and Namaste fared much better than I had, but I was happy to finally be in the Bahamas. I was so wiped out, it was difficult to find the strength to hoist my quarantine flag, but I managed. As soon as I got there, I cleared into customs and immigration. When I got back to Namaste, I replaced my Q flag with my Bohemian courtesy flag and tried to find some decent holding ground. After a few failed attempts at anchoring, I pulled into the Bimini Big Game Club and rested for a few days. I've got some travel tips and ideas for visiting Bimini. If you need to get crew on or off the island, or if you want to visit Bimini by air, you want to contact Chalks Airlines. The seaplane ride itself is worth the experience and only takes about 20 minutes from Fort Lauderdale. If I was traveling to Bimini by air, I would want to check into the Bimini Big Game Club. Obviously, call ahead for reservations. Now, I was here on my dad's boat in 1997, and since then the resort has undergone a major renovation and is operating under new ownership. The rooms and gardens are beautiful, the staff is friendly, and the food and service is excellent. On the Bimini Big Game grounds, you'll find Bill and Naudla's Keefe's Dive Shop and Adventures. I'm a big diver and dive whenever I get the chance. However, you don't have to be a diver to experience this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to swim with the dolphins in their natural environment off the coast of Bimini. You'll find the trip safe and hosted by a friendly and professional staff. You'll also make a few new friends, albeit they might not have arms and legs. Dolphins are magnificent and highly intelligent mammals, not to mention friendly and playful. Swimming with the dolphins gives you an unparalleled sense of freedom and the unique opportunity to bond with one of the most beautiful creatures on our planet in their own pristine and natural environment. Once your swim is over, you can sit back and enjoy the striking Bohemian backdrop as you leisurely motor back into Bimini Harbor. The next day, I decided to explore Bimini on bicycle. You can rent one from the dive shop. My favorite nighttime hangout on the island is the Complete Angler. They often have dancing and live music at night, but these walls and the island of Bimini itself are haunted by an idol of mine, Ernest Hemingway. Inside the Complete Angler, you'll find the Ernest Hemingway Museum, and as you drink your Kalik, the beer of the Bahamas, you can stroll through the museum and learn about one of our world's greatest writers. You'll see a lot of pictures of a Bohemian past as you realize that time has stood somewhat still here. Fishing is still the pulse that beats through the heart of Bimini, and the faces are still as warm and friendly as they were so many years ago. You might not know this, but Bimini was the fictional backdrop for Hemingway's Islands in the Stream. The day was warming as I pedaled past the colorful shops, bars, and restaurants. I was heading to the western shore in search of a shipwreck, and I found it, the Gallant Lady. She was grounded against a picturesque background of 1,000 shades of blue. Even though I'm fascinated by shipwrecks, I hope never to have one of my own. I do caution you, however, exploring the Gallant Lady is no place for children, and if you are to board, proceed with extreme caution, as there are jagged and rusted points at every turn. What was the crew of the Gallant Lady feeling as they landed on this rocky stretch of beach? There's an eerie feeling in here, and I didn't stay long. Well, I spent about a week in Bimini, but after that I set sail across the banks for Chub Key and Nassau. I anchored on the bank my first night by Russell Beacon.
It's a pretty nice day. I'm sailing through the tongue of the ocean. I just passed the Bahama Bank. I left Bimini yesterday morning at about 10. Went across the bank all day. I had to motor. It was like flat, no wind, and about 1600 it picked up to 20 knots of wind, and which kind of sucked because I had to anchor out on the bank last night, and there was like 4 foot, 4.5, maybe 5 foot seas to anchor in, so it's kind of like trying to sleep on a bucking bronco. It didn't get very much sleep. But finished going across the bank today. Now I'm in the tongue of the ocean. They say there's really good fishing here because all the fish kind of get pushed up into this corner, on the bank, all the deep water fish. And I'm hoping to catch a mahi-mahi or something. I did catch a barracuda yesterday, but I let it go because a lot of the reef fish here have ciguatera. It's a poison. It's a pretty nasty poison, actually, that the fish get. Barracuda definitely have it. Reef fish get it. The reef has the poison in it, and the small fish eat it off the reef, and the bigger fish eat the smaller fish, and blah, 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 blah. It just goes on until you got big grouper who have it, and barracuda and everything else. But I do have my line out today. You can see it. It's right over there. And hopefully I'll catch some good lunch. There's a big storm cloud kind of heading this way, but it's a pretty cool day, man.
The second night out of Bimini, I anchored between Bird and Pigeon Keys. The sunset was beautiful, and I managed a good night's rest. As you can tell from the horizon, Namaste is healing well and making good way. I'm still trying to shed my land legs, and I'm finding it difficult to get about. I'm hoping for a good catch for lunch, though.
I'm very lazy about wearing my harness. Where's some light? There it is. Very lazy about wearing my harness, but I met a guy in Bimini who, the night before, actually I cooked him dinner. They were a very nice couple I met in Bimini. He got hit in the head with the boom the night before. There was a squall. It was blowing about 45. He was wearing his harness. Man, I cannot speak today. He got hit in the head, knocked off the boat. She didn't really know much about sailing, but as he said it, he jumped off the water and got back into the boat. He thought he got hit by lightning. It was so hard. His head was all banged up and stuff. And anyway, I'm going to start wearing my harness. I'm crossing today from Bird Key to Nassau. It's I think it's about 35-40 miles. It's not bad. But that's it. Got the fishing rod out. Hopefully get a nice mahi-mahi today.
Well, I didn't catch my mahi-mahi, nor did I get the best feeling coming into Nassau. You can see the buildings from miles offshore, and the smell of cruise ships in progress fills the air. It's the largest port in the Bahamas, though, so I felt the need to cover it. It's a shame that people visit Nassau leaving thinking they got a sense of the Bahamas. Nassau is like being back in the States. You'll find a Hard Rock Cafe, Subway, Burger King, McDonald's, KFC, and a lot of the other major names you'll find in the States, and there's usually 3 to 4 cruise ships in port. You might want to do some duty-free shopping and enjoy a Cuban cigar or two. You can easily find transportation across the bridge to Paradise Island, which is the home to the famous Atlantis Resort and Casino. I've spent a fair amount of time in Vegas, and Atlantis plays on the same field as all of the other major casinos. I think it's funny, though, that Bohemians are not allowed to gamble here, just everyone else. You'll find all the usual stuff: slot machines, roulette, blackjack, craps, but my favorite part of the casino was the aquarium. It's quite magnificent, and houses sharks, rays, and a plethora of other sea life. As I was walking back to Namaste, I found a local market underneath the bridge. This market is my favorite place to shop for fresh seafood, and you get everything at local Bahamian prices. And so I continued to wander to what I now consider home. Crocodile's Bar and Grill is really the only safe place the anchoring sailor can keep his dinghy when ashore. At Crocodile's, you'll find internet access, free water, a free dinghy dock, and they'll even let you dispose of your trash in the restaurant's dumpster. They ask no money for these services, nor do they require that you eat at the establishment. However, you really do want to eat here. The food is excellent, and the bar an island retreat from the vibe of Nassau. You have to try the conch salad, it's awesome. Crocodile's represents the true meaning of Bahamian hospitality, and I personally want to say thank you for making my stay in Nassau such a pleasant one. I spent about a month anchored about 100 yards from Crocodile's. The winds have been blowing freshly over 20 knots the entire time. Then the perfect day came. It was time to leave my new friends in search of ones not made. This is the last time I will fly my Bahamian flag over the crystal blue waters of the Bahamas for quite some time. I've been waiting for the perfect weather to cross the yellow banks so I can see the numerous coral heads which disappear in any kind of wind or wave conditions. There's one. Check out what a difference good polarized sunglasses make in spotting coral heads. Oh wow, that one was kind of close. Can you believe this water's about 20 feet deep?
I'm at Highbourne Key in the Bahamas, obviously, and this is exactly what I came for. I've been in the Bahamas a month now. I sailed over from Nassau. It was about 35 miles to Highbourne Key. It's beautiful. I'm in the anchorage. There's a reef over there. I'm just about to go dive and see if I can get some dinner. Do a little spear fishing.
I wasn't on the reef for more than a few minutes when I shot this perfect strawberry grouper. I don't have refrigeration, so I only try to take fish that I can eat in one sitting, and the larger reef fish are more prone to have ciguatera. I left my anchorage early the next morning and sailed out with the tide. I navigated Highbourne Cut and entered Exuma Sound. I spent a very relaxing day reading and enjoying the solitude of the Caribbean. There was a light warm breeze of about 10 knots, and Quint, my autopilot, was at the helm all day.
Hey, it's, let me get behind the light. Can you see me? What day is it? I have no idea what day it is. I left, I don't know where I left either. I'm joking. I left Highbourne Key this morning at, probably 9 o'clock, and I am on Exuma Sound doing a thundering 1.8 knots and 7.3 knots of wind, so it's not too exciting, but it's beautiful out here. The water is just deep blue, and there's absolutely nothing in sight. Zero. So after the sun sets, I'm going to set the perimeter alarm on the radar and get some sleep. It's been a pretty relaxing day. I'm reading a good book, so it makes it pretty enjoyable. Anyway, I leave the camera on sometimes just to capture stuff, so I'm going to go back about my business.
I usually get Nobletech weather information through my Iridium satellite phone. However, I wanted a backup system and bought a Grundig single sideband receiver in Florida. I can cable the headphone jack in the radio to the microphone input in my laptop and receive weather faxes. It's a little tricky, but if you get a decent signal, it works relatively well. What do you know, all's well on the horizon. The next morning, when I popped my head out of the hatch, I found myself in another postcard.
Coming in and anchoring on Long Island. It's about 40 miles from Georgetown, and this is the most beautiful place I've ever been in my life. It is absolutely spectacular. I don't know if you can see the watercolor. I mean, it looks like a bathtub. It's just, God, it's so beautiful here. Anyway, I'll take some more video. Ta-ta for now. How's this for a beautiful spot? It's all my own. There's Namaste out there. Red sky at night, sailor's delight. Red sky in the morning, sailor take warning. It's nighttime. Fortunately. Remember, I've showed you red sky in the morning, and that was during Hurricane Isabel the next morning. Though it was no delight. No rest for the weary, right? It's basically my second day, no sleep. I'm very tired. I left Long Island a few days ago. I pulled in briefly to Clarencetown to get some fuel and ended up damaging the outboard very badly. Should be looking in here. Last night, I get like 20-minute cat naps if I'm lucky, maybe an hour a night. Last night the fan belt burned up, and the night before the fan belt burned up. But last night I burned up my last belt, so I had to pull the whole alternator off and put on my old alternator because I had belts for my old alternator. Got that done about 45 minutes ago, and was just about to try to sleep for another 20-30 minutes, and the perimeter alarm went off, you know, saying that potential collision was coming, and here's what I have, potential collision-wise. Big cargo ship. Don't want to hit that. I'm gonna go try to catch some sleep. Bye. Wind was scarce, and any attempt to sail would not push Namaste much over a knot. Quint manned the helm for days on end as I tried to find bits of sleep and battle the relentless heat. I caught a large wahoo, but just as I was getting it on deck, it snapped the wire leader and wiggled out of the gaff. I'm out of fresh food, so I'll be cracking open another can for dinner. Oh joy. It's so very, very hot. It's probably 95 degrees and just black. Hot. Well, I'm glad nobody was here to see that, because I really looked like a fool right there, didn't I? But here's what Jamaica looks like. I'm about 2 hours out of Port Antonio. Yeah, check it out. I don't think you can actually see anything. It's pretty hazy. I could smell the rich Jamaican soil from the rainforest from 20 miles out to sea. I've been planning to sail another 520 miles to Cartagena, Colombia, but the wind has been so scarce I've used most of my fuel, and I'd like some fresh provisions. I sailed into Port Antonio, Jamaica under a full moon. It was a beautiful experience. I woke the next morning to the sound of children playing in the nearby water. A local fisherman cast his net only a few yards from Namaste. It wasn't too long before I got a visit from the quarantine officer. I spent about 15 minutes filling out paperwork, and everything went smoothly. There is no fee to check into Jamaica. However, in Port Antonio, you must pay the yacht club for a mooring. It's $7 a day USD, but you get the run of the full facility. The grounds are filled with flowers, fruit to pick, and beautiful images at every turn. There's a swimming pool to cool off in during the day, a TV room with cable so you can watch movies with your fellow cruisers in the evenings, and free internet access in the main office during the day. The grounds are truly stunning, and the environment peaceful and serene. Once you decide to leave the seclusion of the yacht club gates, however, you'll be exposed to the energy of Port Antonio. Many people don't like to cruise in Jamaica because they feel it's dangerous. I felt relatively safe and only had one incident where a man pulled a bottle on me after I refused to give him money. As soon as I reached into my pocket for my mace and asp, he was gone. My friends John and Annie and Julio and Soledad had no problems whatsoever in the month we all spent in Port Antonio. I'm sure my incident had something to do with the fact that I was always running around with my video camera in hand. The cost of my video camera could feed many of these families for months on end. A few days later, my Spanish friends invited me to hike up into the mountains with them. We hiked all day, and the Jamaican rain fell a few times to cool us off. As quickly as it came, it left, and the sun shined again.
Yeah, man. Here's an interesting little store. Actually, I think it's the smallest store I've ever seen. But he said they have cold beer, so let's check it out. I wonder how their insurance company lets them get away with this. Well, I made it with no injury, so I guess it's okay. Bread? Fruit? Oh, please, no more cans. Warm beer? Some vegetables. What's that smell? Is Julio smoking something? Huh, it's the other guy. Bananas? Oh, maybe in this big white thing. Ah, beer. I finally found out the real reason why the chicken crossed the road. It was going to visit the drum guy.
Oh, yeah, very nice.
Yeah, man, yeah, man.
Making drums, huh?
Yeah, man. Yeah, man.
Hi.
Okay.
Hello.
That's smaller.
Yeah, there's a little bamboo one for the little children. There's that little one.
How long you been making drums? How many years?
About 4 years, 5 or 6 years now.
4 or 6 years?
Yeah. This little one.
That's a
here.
big conch shell.
Yeah, huh?
Yeah.
This the one you play like this. But these are not loud enough, you know?
Yeah.
So I don't sell this.
Yeah.
And they have this as a pattern.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Yeah, man.
And that one? And the bigger one?
Yeah, these are the bigger ones. These smaller one. That's for 500 Jamaica.
¿Cuánto?
500.
500.
500 Jamaica.
Oh.
Watch your bay, man. Your bay trouble.
Yeah. And play always with this
no,
one?
you use your hand, but you can't use it if you like to.
What kind of skin?
Goat skin.
Goat skin?
Goat. We use the ram goat and the she goat.
The she goat, huh?
Ya me gustaría comprar esto.
Yeah, man, yeah, man.
I like to buy this one.
Yeah, man, I will tell you this little one, man. You know? I
Could
mean,
you sign?
sign?
Yes.
For it?
Put your
sign
name.
over here.
My name?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't read so good.
No?
No, but the name doesn't do nothing. I could tell you the name and you just write it.
No tengo soledad.
Okay. You have a pen?
Son 500 y pico.
You have a
¿Cuánto
pen?
te han dado?
1, 2,
Oh?
3, 4,
No.
5.
Those people I'm talking.
5.
Yeah, man.
You're gonna bring
Yeah,
this
right.
to Cartagena when we go, and you're gonna make some music, huh?
Yeah. If you want to know my name, I can tell you and you just write it.
Okay.
You want it?
Yeah.
But you have a pen?
I have in the pen. Yo tengo la bolígrafo.
¿Sí?
Yeah. Let me check.
If you want to know my name,
Bueno.
you can
That's
write it.
better.
That better?
Yeah,
Okay, here.
he wants you
You
to.
will
Everywhere you like it. Yeah.
Oh, I can't do the writing. I'm not a-
You
I
can
want
make
you
something.
write it.
You can make something, huh?
no.
Something.
You.
Something.
I got something. That's something.
Okay, no problem.
No, that's a K.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
this no. W.
W?
Yeah.
Ajá.
You know?
KW.
But I tell you, my name is Kenneth Willis.
Kenneth William. Yeah.
Willis.
Yeah.
Willis.
So, if you want a signature, I will just write the hen, write the first and the hen.
Yeah.
But if you want to write it yourself,
Yeah.
you can write it.
Oh, no.
Okay.
No,
No, for
for
me.
you.
It's better if you like something.
Jamaica?
Okay.
Traveling
Thank
is
you
so
very
cool.
much.
I really do love this. It's great, but it is so hot. It's ridiculous. No matter how much Red Stripe I drink, I just keep burning up, and it's hot. It's probably 95, and the humidity's probably like 98. So, what a cool day, though. They bought a drum. Hola.
How are you?
estás?
Good.
Estás muy
No,
bien.
manguitos.
Yeah, I'm going for coconuts. Ah, nice
No,
mangoes.
not coconut. Only.
I'm going to cut down a big piece of bamboo.
Yeah.
I found one back here, maybe 45 feet tall.
Yeah.
I'm gonna knock down the coconuts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Over there.
Yeah.
Are you a machete?
¿Qué hace? ¿Vamos cargados? ¿Quieres ir
You like to go
cargado?
over there?
Yeah, you wanna go?
Yeah.
I found a plentiful mango tree and decided to stock up since I was already here. I can hold about 30 in my backpack. I haven't been shopping much lately, and I've been living on coconuts, mangoes, and breadfruit.
Catching the mangoes.
I've been eating 8 to 10 mangoes a day. They're really good.
See, this one's been stung. You see the flies come
Yeah.
and they sting it.
Yeah.
You see? You gotta be careful. It's no good.
Yeah.
After searching for a while, I found the perfect piece of bamboo, cut it down, and went coconut hunting. When you buy a coconut in the States, in the supermarket, the husk has been removed, and you just buy the brown nut inside. No coconuts, huh, Julio?
Oh.
I gathered over 20 coconuts in just under 15 minutes. It was a hot day, and we were all excited about having fresh coconut water. The greener ones are good for water, and the darker ones for meat. I was the first one to crack one open. Julio and Soledad soon followed suit.
Very good.
A small weather window presented itself, and after a month it was time to move on once again. I left Port Antonio, Jamaica at about 0400.
It's the second day crossing the Caribbean. It's pretty nice out. It's blowing 20 C's, or I don't know, 6-ish, 6 maybe 8 going by. My autopilot disengaged from the tiller. Bananas are doing all right. I think we've seen better days. 4th day, almost 5th day out of Jamaica, Port Antonio. I am 176 miles off of the Colombian coastline right now. The weather's been fairly decent for the first 4 days. You know, 6 to 9 foot seas, 15 to 22 knot winds. This morning, though, it kicked up kind of out of nowhere. It was actually the most exciting day yet on the trip. It was like crawling up on deck. I had to take the staysail down. It started blowing pretty hard and gusty. I'm really looking forward to getting to Cartagena and resting for a couple days. It's pretty nice out here. I'm just kicking back. I took most of the jib down. I'm trying to make very slow time so I can end up at Boca Chica at around 4:35 in the morning. Then it's about an 8-mile hike up to Cartagena.
At night, I often tune in the BBC for company and to find out what's going on in the world. That night, I studied the charts to the entrance of Boca Chica and Cartagena. I also got my first glimpse of South America on the radar that evening. And the next morning, I was there, Cartagena, Colombia. I paid an agent $60 to check me into the country and pulled into the Club Nautico Yacht Club. The rates are very reasonable. You can med tie for 25 cents a foot, or you can anchor out for free and pay a few dollars to use the club facilities. There's a very cool, funky vibe at Club Nautico. You'll find the TV room under a thatched straw roof, lots of potted plants and flowers, and a bar filled with Colombian atmosphere, a pool table, and local artwork. It's usually crowded with people, but I'm shooting this very early in the morning. I always have my breakfast at Club Nautico. If I was to order the full breakfast, an omelet, bacon, fruit, juice, and endless coffee, it would only cost $2 US, around 5,000 pesos. Cruising here is very economical. I often find a cafe in Old Town, drink coffee, and read the day away. I'm very sad today, though. I'm leaving Namaste at Club Nautico and flying back to the States in the morning. I'm looking forward to seeing my family, but I feel very uncomfortable leaving my home and friends. As I walked the old streets of Cartagena, a thought triggered a smile, which touched my lips with the utmost satisfaction. I've done it. I've become the man I aspired to be when I was just a young boy. In the last 2 years, I've bought, refitted, and sailed my sailboat from Mystic, Connecticut to Cartagena, Colombia. Today is my birthday, and Julio and Soledad invited me out for dinner. They arrived in Cartagena a day before I did.
Cumpleaños feliz, cumpleaños feliz, que lo cumplas alegre, que lo cumpla Yay!
It's my birthday. Today I'm 22 years old. No, today I'm 39 years old. Please.
Julio and Soledad are artists and return home every year to paint portraits and sketch caricatures in an outdoor mall. They make enough money in 3 months to spend the rest of the year cruising their boat Illusion wherever the wind takes them. Last year, pirates boarded Illusion off the coast of Venezuela, pistol-whipped Julio to his knees, bagged his head, and forced Soledad to gather all their valuables. One of the pirates fired a shot through the cockpit, just missing Soledad on the other side. Luckily, they were left with just a few bumps and bruises. Have you ever heard the quote, "No man is an island, entire of itself. Every man is a piece of the continent"? Over the past year, I've found these words wandering through the corners of my mind on more than one occasion. Putting this little boat together and traveling, real traveling, not cruise ship or four-star traveling, has changed who I am. I've always considered myself an island, but I'm not. I'm just a very small piece of the world and here for a very short time. As soon as I placed my backpack on Namaste's deck the following morning, the sailing gods protested my departure. Namaste knew I was leaving, and she started tugging at her lines as if she was trying to break free to follow me. I haven't seen this much wind since Hurricane Isabel. It will blow 47 knots today. Everyone was up securing their lines and breaking out extra fenders. The wind howled through the rigging and the rain fell heavy. Many American sailors are afraid to visit Cartagena. I found it to be very safe. When I first moved to Los Angeles, I had 3 gun incidences in my first 14 months living there, and my best friend was shot at on the highway. Bad things happen to people everywhere, and without taking risks, we will never taste the rewards of life, and fear will steal all. Colombia is a country of contrast, and missing Cartagena as a cruising destination would be a crime. Remember in Survivor they asked, if you could only bring one thing to a deserted island, what would it be? I know the answer. It's a good attitude.
Say hello!
Hello, my friend.
This is a chicken ass pollo de culo. Culo de pollo. There's a chicken ass
I felt very hollow boarding the plane, even though I know I'll only be gone a few months. I didn't want to come back to the States until I finished my circumnavigation, but money is a necessary evil and the price I must pay for living my dreams. I need to get to the Pacific, and going through the Panama Canal is very costly, so I'm toying with the idea of sailing to Brazil, the Falkland Islands, and rounding Cape Horn. I'll make my decision upon my return to Colombia in January. I've only been on the plane for just a few short minutes, and I already find myself gazing out of a window, dreaming of sailing Namaste again one day. Project BlueSphere has been the most rewarding experience of my life, and I'm very grateful to the people who've helped me make it a reality. And I do promise I will continue to document my journey and share it with all of you. I'm Alex Dorsey. Thank you so much for watching today.